speakers. And I wanted to say a few words about our first speaker, Sam. He's opening the series this year. And then last spring, Rich emailed me one day and said, hey, do you know what Sam is doing? And I was like, I don't know, what is he doing? He said, we really need to bring him and have him talk about his work. And then I read further along in the emails that Rich forwarded to me. And I was really blown away. Sam is a graduate student. He's an NCO graduate student in the local Navy Wagers. But he was actually doing work in Kenya at the time. So inspired by a class that he took with Rich here in this room, right? On the history of molecular biology, he really felt like he wants to do something that makes a difference in people's lives. So he was working in Kenya with the Health Yetu Foundation. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And he was working, he's going to tell us more about it, but he was helping with an HPV vaccination campaign. And he was not only working on administering vaccinations, but also on addressing misinformation about vaccines, something that we have encountered more and more here, so you should be working here as well on that. So when I learned about it, I really, really wanted to have him tell us about his work. You know, it was one of those examples of our students doing amazing things, not just in lab, but also in their lives outside of the bench. But we didn't have any space in the spring. So then I am super, super excited to give our very first talk. Thank you for everything that you do, and I can't wait to hear about it right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's already half of my talk. No. Thank you, of course, for the invitation and for having me, and thank you all for being here. Try to imagine that this is where you get your groceries. It's not here in Cambridge. You go to the Broadway marketplace, or you go to Whole Foods, or you go to Market Basket. But this is actually the market where you go get your food and drinks, etc. on Tuesday. This is actually a very remote area of Kenya in a town called Nagurunit in the northern part of Kenya. So after this market day, you go back to your community and you talk to the things at hand. The problems in your community, the things you heard during the market day, etc. Probably what is on top of your mind is livestock, because most of their wealth and most of their income and food, etc. comes from livestock. Probably a tribe, neighboring tribe, has tried to steal your livestock the other day, or you tried to steal theirs, happens all the time. Or for instance, your livestock has passed away because there's not enough running water, fresh water, etc. So water is another topic that's a lot on their minds, not only for your livestock, but also for yourself, because there's no access to fresh and clear water. But then all of a sudden you get a call from a neighboring community leader about this HPV topic. You've not really heard about that before, and you wonder what it is about. And they tell you to come to a neighboring town, a bigger town, to come together with other community leaders and talk about this HPV problem. So that's exactly what happened 3 weeks ago. Again, it's happened a few times now, in a town called Kor in northern Kenya. And we brought 50 community leaders together to talk about this HPV problem. So that's exactly what my talk is going to be about. The introduction was already done. I'm a G2 in the Wagers Lab. I'm not yet ready to talk about what I do there, but I'm going to talk about my other passion, which is creating access to healthcare through this. But to explain a little bit about how I got to this place, we have to go back to COVID 2021. I was 23 at the time, and trying to escape the lockdowns, etc. I took a plane to South Africa with a very good friend. And we took it way too seriously because nobody else had shaven their head or shaved their head. But we thought we were quite cool, and we were in Ranger School for a few months. And in Ranger School, we got a call from this man whose name you all probably know quite well, but it's not the same man though. It's not Duke Hextra Harvard. In my mind, it's Duke Hextra Harvard because there's another Duke Hextra Kenya. And they are cousins, so it's not coincidence. They are cousins and they have a grandfather who's also called Duke Hextra. So it's also sometimes confusing, Duke Hextra 1, 2, and etc. It's Harvard in Kenya. So this Duke Hextra Kenya called me and told me that, well, I didn't know him. It was very random actually. And called me that he wanted to do something back to his community in Kenya because he grew up there actually. He is a Dutch businessman, but he wants to give something back to the people in Kenya. And of course, we were 23, we wanted to not go back to COVID lockdown in the Netherlands. So we went from South Africa, we flew to Kenya, and coming in Kenya, we were trying to find out, okay, what problems on healthcare level can we solve here? For that, we have to talk about Kenya for a bit, and what you're looking at here is the population density map of Kenya. It's about 57.5 million people, 42 tribes, almost as much different languages, different cultures, etc. Northern Kenya, going back actually 57.5 million people. You can see in the western part it's it's a higher density. In the northern part, so the light yellow part, there's still about 10 to 20 million people living there. But northern Kenya the tribes there have more of a nomadic lifestyle. There's very limited roads. There's very limited asphalt roads. It's very difficult to get there. It's the accessibility is very hard. And there's very limited healthcare access. So from that, we decided to start a foundation. We came up with the name Yetu because it comes from Swahili, which actually means our health. And our focus was going to be creating access to healthcare in remote areas. Okay, now we of course have to identify problems that we can actually solve. So we were trying to find severe medical problems with a simple solution. Because we at the moment were small, we don't have the money or the resources to sort of set up a whole hospital in the north or something like that. We had to do something, which was simple. So we identified the first one and later the second, which is eye care and dental care. And for eye, specifically focusing on cataract, and for dental, specifically focusing on dental pain. Cataract, every year in Kenya, about 150,000 new cases emerge. And when it comes to dental or dental pain, in this part of Kenya, about 40% actively needs dental care to actually sort of pull out a tooth or fill a cavity or something. Okay, so we've identified two problems, but what do we need for this? Of course, we need doctors. We need doctors for this, and not trying to be a typical European or United States NGO that's coming to Kenya and trying to do something good, bringing in doctors, white old doctors from here, bringing them there. It's not necessary at all because there's no shortage of medical expertise in Kenya at all. In the highly populated areas, there are good doctors, they get good training, and they know way better what's going on in their population than we do. So we wanted to work with Kenyan doctors, so that was also one of our focuses, empowering Kenyan doctors to bring healthcare to remote areas. Well, since then, for eye care, this is a cataract, a cloudy lens. We've done, in the past 4 years, we've done over 1,000 cataract surgeries, bringing back sight to these people with a simple 15-minute operation. And for dental care, which we've only been doing for 2 years, to be precise, we've done over 2,000 dental procedures. Now fast forward to the fall semester of 2024, about a year ago. I was indeed taking this course, which all the G1s have to take. It's called Talking Science, and you have to learn how to present. And you have to learn how to present by presenting Nobel Prize winning work. So instructors know that you're not messing up the science, you're messing up the presentation. And that's also why I'm using black slides. I learned that from Rich. So I chose a topic which I already knew something about, that it was a problem in Kenya, of course. But it is by the work of Professor Howard Suhrhausen, a German professor, who in 1973 was studying cervical cancer samples, and he found that the human papillomavirus is causing about 95% of all cervical cancer. Well, after 1973, after identifying this, quite late, in 2008, they developed a vaccine for this, and after this vaccine was approved quite quickly, also Howard Suhrhausen got the Nobel Prize for this. But then you might wonder, 2008, that's quite some time ago, what's the current situation? The current situation actually is that if you look at the West, and so here, I don't have my laser pointer. The West, you can see that United States, Europe, etc., the cervical cancer rate is quite low. But as you can see, in sub-Saharan Africa, the cervical cancer rate is very high. So I wondered, learning this, what is actually the situation in Kenya? The situation in Kenya is quite dire because there's about 4,000 deaths every year due to cervical cancer. And this is the deadliest and most prevalent cancer among women in Kenya. The problem for me, and I still sort of can't stop thinking about all this, and I can't let it go at all, is knowing that this is a solvable problem. These women don't have to pass away due to cervical cancer. Talking about the HPV, because of course the HPV vaccine is the solution. Talking about the HPV vaccine, in Kenya in general, it's a little bit higher. The more populated areas like the capital, Nairobi, etc., if you take that into account, it's about 23% to, let's say, 35%. But in these remote regions, it's 0 to 10. Like on the high end, it's 10. So it's very difficult. There's very little vaccination coverage in these areas. So we know the problem and the solution. And that's why we have to take action, and how I'm going to do that, that's through Yetu. First, we have to identify, of course, what is actually happening in these remote regions. Why is nobody vaccinated there, and why is nobody doing this? So why is the vaccination rate so low? Well, what do you need? Vaccines. Of course you need vaccines. Actually, in Kenya and also other countries, the vaccines are being provided by an organization called Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, which is a very, very big international alliance that provides these vaccines for free to the Kenyan government. And that's actually already since 2019. One sec about Gavi. As you can see, these are the countries that they are providing free vaccines to. It's not only HPV, it's also HIV, etc. And they got about 9 billion to spend. Actually, this year they did a new funding round, and for the coming 5 years, they've got about 9 billion to spend. Although, that's a little bit less than they hoped to get. I'm not trying to get too political here. Because the largest funders for Gavi already were also for the past funding round, but again for this funding round, are the UK, the largest one, and the second one is the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, not Gates anymore, Foundation. So what about our friend here on the right? The UK is giving 1.7 billion in this round. Bill Gates 1.6 billion, and the US 0. This is not the only reason why they didn't reach their funding goal. Of course, you want to set this quite high. Maybe that's they were not they were not projected to be the one filling that gap. But still, they were the third largest, and they aren't doing anything anymore. So okay, we now know there are free vaccines. They are available in Kenya, and they're available to everyone. You wonder maybe, are they available also in these super remote regions? So when we first went there in March, after setting everything up, this is a picture that I took myself. This is in South, or a very remote region. And Gavi has placed fridges here, very sophisticated fridges that can keep them cold for as long as needed, in these super remote towns. And counting all the vaccines that are actually present in there, if you calculate the US value for that, it was about $45,000 worth of vaccines in this super remote little town, just laying there, just doing nothing. So that, of course, makes you wonder what's happening there. So at one point, on one side, we have the free vaccines being provided by Gavi and the Kenyan government, but what is actually going wrong here? So what is missing? And that's actually the infrastructure and the capacity, or the people administering these vaccines. So the Kenyan government doesn't have the capacity to fund its people to actually administer the vaccines, but not only administer the vaccines, also spread the awareness, because people in these regions have no idea what HPV is. They have no idea. And if you put some vaccines there, you say, yeah, you have to take this. And they're like, yeah, why? Why should I do that? And they have no idea that's a problem at all. So you have to have people telling them, creating awareness, but also, of course, actually administering the vaccines. And the Kenyan government just doesn't have the capacity to do that. So that's where Yetu comes. And together, of course, we also aim to work together with the Kenyan government, and we actually very much do so. So we aimed to set up a Kenyan team that educates and vaccinates. So education and vaccination is our strategy. And to do this, we've set up the first edition of our HPV team. And I can proudly show this picture here. There are a few people in here that I do not know because they're teachers from the school here. But the lady on the bottom left, one in, so the second from bottom left, is Dr. Marjan Lekirimpoto. She is the HPV team leader, and she actually is a woman, 28 years old, who grew up in these very remote regions, got her training internationally. She went to China for her medical training, but she decided to come back and start giving back to her own community. She set up her own organization. It's called NARET organization, and this is exactly what Yetu wants to do. We want to support these people in doing what they do best, and we support with fundraising, we support with organizational stuff on the backside, and we actually want them to be running the show. Let's say it that way. So okay, then we have the HPV team. What do they do then? So what they first do is they go talk to the community gatekeepers. Community gatekeepers is a very Kenyan term, and they have a lot of beautiful terms. And gatekeepers is really the people that are the gatekeepers to their community. And these are the chiefs, the head teachers, and the faith leaders. It's not 50-50, but it's Islamic and Christian faith leaders mostly. So then we come back to this workshop that I already showed you about in the beginning. This was the first workshop that we did, which was 6 months ago. And as you can see, we have again a group of 50 leaders together, and all of them, except one, as you can see right there, he fell asleep for a second, he's the chief of them all, and he gave this presentation, or it is this big talk, a lot of big words and showmanship, and then he fell asleep afterwards, which was interesting. The rest, however, is paying very close attention to what we are saying, and that's also something that we have seen. What we have seen is that once they are aware of the problem, of what HPV is, they are incredible health advocates for their communities, and they are actually, we really found that this is the key to figuring this out. We have to talk to the communities like face to face, talk to these leaders, and work our way into the communities that way. So coming back, of course, to what we did, that was the first edition, and this is the most recent one, and we have one planned in November again. So okay, then we have done that. We've talked to the community gatekeepers, but now they have to go talk to their community. And after the one 3 weeks ago, we got this picture from our WhatsApp group with all these gatekeepers. We got this picture back of one of these gatekeepers in the middle, this man, talking to his community. They met in their meeting place, and they are talking here, and he's spreading the word about this HPV problem. And this is beautiful to get, of course, if you just organize this, and they are actively sending this, showing that it is truly showing that they are true healthcare or advocates for their community. They really care very much about what goes on in their community and to bring the community forward. So okay, this happens. They have hopefully sensitized the community about this problem. And now the HPV team visits the schools to educate the children. And several weeks later, the team visits the schools, and here you can see Jackson actually talking as the teacher he's the teacher of the group to the children. And what we do is we educate the children, but what you can also see is we give them these flyers, information flyers, which sort of tells them about all the details, and we go over that flyer step by step to educate them. Sometimes also when the groups are too large, we do it outside. And as I said, we give them the information flyers, but we also give them the consent forms. But of course, the parents have to sign off their consent. And we translate these to 6 different languages to sort of adhere to their cultural differences. And then after that, the consent form goes back to the parents that evening, and it's signed by them. And hopefully, the next day they come back with the signed consent forms. And then everyone who has one of those, we vaccinate, everyone eligible. And that's exactly what we do, as you can see here. And the most recent edition of this was ongoing this week, and we finished it up today in Core, Marsabit County, and this was 2 days ago. Quite a large area, large school that we visited here. As you can see, I found this one very funny. Some of the girls are a little bit scared. I've seen these faces many times in the pictures that we get. But of course, the team is super good at handling this and making sure everything goes well. We also have the boys who are at the moment not being vaccinated, and that's a big thing that we do want to do, because that's what we do in the West and what should be done. But that has to go from a national level. It's not in the guidelines at the moment, and that's something we are very much working towards doing that on a national level and advocating for that. But it's just not something we can do as of yet. We can't go do that without their consent. So, to sum that up, in the past 4 days we've done 628 vaccinations, actually. And that's the teacher also doing the vaccination. He is a nurse. He's also a teacher. He's a teacher and a nurse. To sum that up again, to put that into perspective, what we've done thus far. So what have we done? In the past 4 months, we've done 2,456 girls. That comes together to over 80% in the schools that we have visited, where before it was 0 to 10%, more often 0 than 10%, showing that our approach is working. And what we will do, of course, is going to be in the next 6 months, what we are planning to do is 1,000 vaccinations per month. They're going to visit schools 2 weeks a month. And this way we will be able to already cover almost 100% of the target area that we had at the beginning of this year. Through this, of course, we work together with Gavi. We work together with the Kenyan government and help Yetu. And Gavi has actually already reached out to us to see, because they've noted, they've seen what we are doing, and there are talks ongoing. The meetings are planned for like in a few weeks. So that's very exciting, and to start working with them on a national level as well. Then the perspectives that we have for not only next year or the next 6 months, but the next years to come. Because of course it's not a problem of only northern Kenya, it's a problem of Kenya, it's a problem of sub-Saharan Africa. So 2025, past region, it was about that region where Health Yetu was active. 2026 we'll be focusing on the northern Kenya. Then in 2028 we want to be on a national level doing this. We're already recruiting a second HPV team, and there will be many more. And then, of course, there's a bigger problem. In 2040, I aim to be active with Health Yetu in sub-Saharan Africa and to really address this problem. So, okay, we know the problems and the solutions. What can we sort of get from you? I would really want all of you to become Health Yetu ambassadors. And in a way, that is exactly how we built this organization, is by random people just contributing a little bit. And in any way possible, like with ideas, with your network, etc., access to certain people to talk about this, or to sort of get governmental access, etc. So that's what I want to request from you. And I think putting it all together, science in action, I think that sort of goes back to the fact that knowledge actually leads to action in this case. And I would like to thank everyone in this picture and all of you for listening.
Questions?
So this was awesome. Do you need people or money or just words? I think that action. Go to Africa, go to Kenya, or do you need people? What's the bottleneck? Is it people who is there not enough money that is the bottleneck, or is it people who do stuff? Or is it just spreading information and to learn? I'm not sure what is the most pressing need.
So it's not the people on the ground. So it's definitely not the nurses, etc. We have those. We have the people in Kenya. We have all them qualified people that can very much do this. To reach 2028 and 2040, definitely money is an issue. Definitely, yeah, because we have the budget to do 2025, 2026. Northern Kenya, etc. Of course, money is an issue there. We need to actually have finances for that. Spreading the word is definitely one of the largest problems.
But that would
people being aware is definitely the issue.
But the word is necessary to get money, right?
Yes, yes. So that's
the word is not necessary for people to engage. It's just
Yeah. So for Health Yetu overseas, it's the word to get money, and of course our team is making sure that in the communities the word is spread.
How do you plan to sustain this once the team leaves for future generations? Because I imagine it will just fix the problem temporarily for that place.
Yes, so of course sustainability is a big issue, and what we're doing here is we're really educating a generation, but not only one generation, we're going top generation and bottom generation. The vaccines are there. The Kenyan government is actually, as you saw in the presentation, they are laying there waiting to be administered. So the spreading of the word, educating the community, they can actually go without us being there, go to these facilities and get an HPV vaccination. That's no problem. So that's our sustainability plan there. And of course, focusing on educating and empowering the Kenyan doctors to do this, and not us just coming in there, flying in there all the way from Europe or the US, and then leaving again and taking a lot of knowledge with us. No, we're actually educating not only the people, but also our teams. We're trying to support them in that.
So you mentioned earlier that you had 80% coverage in the schools, but what's happening with this other 20% not getting vaccinated? And are you guys trying any strategies to get to 90% or anything?
Well, in some schools we're getting to 99%, and some schools we're getting lower. So what's happening there? There's a lot of misbeliefs within the community about vaccines in general. A big factor for the fact that for the fact that there was such a low uptake is the church. When we started this, when they started the campaign in 2019, and there was a lot of misinformation there, and the church and also the community themselves, they spread the word that it was a wide form of family planning. The same thing happened for COVID. In these communities, they also didn't want to take the COVID vaccine because they thought this was yet another way where we are trying to tell them that they should bring their populations down. That's just actual fact. So it's just misinformation there. The church is a very large influence on these communities. So if that's still a little bit there, and we're trying to focus, or we trying to resolve that by just communicating and bringing them to them through such workshops of several hours, the whole story. And they've just got little snippets of the story. We're trying to give them the whole story. And as you can see, that works very well. But not always. And we're trying to do it as good
So I
as
see there are a ton of questions, but we are already late with our time. So please find Sam afterwards. He's in the wages lab. If you can find him today, get in touch with him. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in this, and thank you again for it.
possible.